Good morning, all of you. I welcome you all to Ansarkari. So, in this video, we are going to discuss the important articles from 14th of January's newspaper. So, firstly, we'll be taking up the Hindu. So, first article it is saying that basically ending the hate speech. So, Supreme Court has to say that all this stops with the government, and it is the government which has, we can say, the ultimate authority or power and which can play an important role in ending hate speech. So government should step in when religious freedom, harmony, and orderly progress they are gravely affected. And Supreme Court also flags hate speech on TV, where the anchors they have become tools to peddle agendas. So basically talking about paid news and how TV anchors they are misusing the freedom that they have, because obviously their freedom definitely have some reasonable restrictions. So it is not like that they can say whatever they feel like on TV when so many people are watching them. So government needs to clamp down on hate speech and hate crimes that are an offense committed on society. And today what we are fighting about is we have more important things to achieve as a nation. So people are starving without jobs. So this is one thing that Supreme Court is saying, that apart from this, there are other more important things that we need to pay attention towards, which includes unemployment. And talking about the TV anchors and how they are even like they are not fulfilling their responsibility, in the sense that they sometimes have their like agendas which promote hate speeches. So that creates divisiveness and violent instincts in the society to win over their TRP wars. And media is not balanced. So we require a free and balanced media, but they are not balanced yet. And talking about, has any anchor been arrested for inciting violence? And if any anchor it had been taken off the air to send a message against triggering hate or bias on TV. So this was the question raised by the Supreme Court. And if freedom is exercised with an agenda, you're not actually serving the people but some other cause. So that is there, and then you have to deal with it. So this is what the Supreme Court has to say regarding tackling the hate speech instances. And we see that with the rise in capital expenditure of the government, it has led to an increase of 53% when we talk about investments. So comparing the two figures from the first three quarters of financial year 2022 and 2023, we see that earlier the total investments were around 13 lakh 80,000 crore rupees, and now they stand at 21 lakh 14,000 crore rupees. So that is the increase we are seeing, which is approximately 53% increase in investment because of increase in government's capital expenditure. And ISRO report says that Joshimat it sank by almost 5.4 centimeter in just 12 days. So you can find out more about the National Remote Sensing Center of ISRO, and this is their report. So we know the reasons behind this instance. And talking about, we obviously know what is the issue going on in Tamil Nadu regarding the tussle between the governor and the chief minister, we can say the government. So here, since he skipped using the term the Dravidian model of governance, so you should be aware about what do we mean by it. So it is referred to a distinctive development model in which Tamil Nadu involves inclusive growth in all spheres like in economy, education, society, thoughts, and action. So it is promoting, and it includes more of inclusive growth. So that is there, and let's move forward. Then a case study which is showing that recently the Kollam district becomes the India's first constitution literate district in India. So we need to come up with such model across India, and this is definitely a very unique thing that has been achieved. And basically people they must be aware about their constitution, about their rights, their responsibilities, their duties, which are enshrined in the constitution. So spreading this constitutional literacy is an important thing, and we need more such districts and states being constitutionally literate. So we need to focus upon this thing. And talking about the Alzheimer's disease, so recently a study says that dairy products can help in combating Alzheimer's. So it says that when a protein, which is called amyloid, it builds up in the organs with the food intake, the risk factor for Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases that increases. And the studies, it shows that the dairy products can help in combating it. Then in Alappuzha, we see that with the Asian waterbird census of 2023, we come to find that there was a decline in water birds, the migratory water birds there, and climate change is one of the reasons. However, more studies required to see how climate change has impacted the migratory pattern of these birds. So again, we are talking about the governor and the government in a particular state. So more than just an address. So the governor's address is more than just an address. So a special address, that is, India adopted the Westminster model of the parliamentary democracy. The Constituent Assembly decided on May 18th, 1949 to adopt this practice. So Article 87 of the Indian Constitution requires the President to make a special address to both the houses of the Parliament assembled on the commencement of the first session of each year. And likewise, we have the same practice at the state level where Governor has to address the House. So President, he has to inform the Parliament of the causes of its summons. And similarly, Article 176 requires the Governor to make a special address at the first session of each year of every state assembly. So here Article 87 and Article 176 are important. Then we see that president's address, it is nothing but a statement of policy of the government. And if the president's address has anything wrong in it or it is found objectionable, so it is the government to blame and not the president, because he is just we can say a messenger, or he is just delivering what are the government policies and schemes. So Calcutta High Court, it upheld that the special address is not an ideal or a ceremonial formality. So it is we can say way beyond than a formality or just a mere address to the legislative assembly. So it keeps the members informed about the executive policies and the legislative program of the state government. And there has never been an incident of a monarch in the UK departing from the official text of his speech. So no such instance has been witnessed in UK. But when in India, we see that the governor of Tamil Nadu recently, he made a constitutional history in the state by omitting certain paragraphs and then walking out of the house. So the Supreme Court, even Supreme Court has held that the constitutional conventions, they are as much a part of the constitution as its written text. So this is, we can say, a constitutional convention of addressing the first meeting of the House every year, and they're equally important as the written text of the Constitution. This is what the Supreme Court has to say, and these conventions, they fill the interstices of a written constitution and they enable effective coordination. So that's why these conventions are also important, because they enable effective coordination between legislature, executive, and the judiciary. And talking about Article 361, so it gives the governor complete immunity from any legal action, because our founding fathers, they hoped that governors would maintain the highest standards of rectitude and propriety. So they are immune from any legal action. And the role of governor, so the constitutional role of governor is that of an elder statesman who brings a sense of gravitas to this high office, and by his oath they must preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law. So the governors, they are expected to be above the party politics, and they should not hamper the functioning of a duly elected state government. So it included all important constitutions article and Supreme Court judgment also. So a governor, he or she must rise above the political, we can say, agendas and political things, and fulfill his constitutional obligations. Then talking about the basic structure doctrine, so parliamentary sovereignty, it is not undone by the basic structure doctrine. So there is no relation between parliamentary sovereignty and the basic structure doctrine. Basically, obviously, this discussion is going on in the backdrop of the vice president's statement that he believes or he thinks that the basic structure doctrine, it is somewhere it is hampering the sovereignty of the parliament, but obviously that is not the case. And it is fairly well known that the parliamentary legislation, it is subject to two limitations under the Constitution of India. So it is not just merely out of your own willingness that things are done this way, but there are two limitations under the Constitution of India. And one is by the judicial review, or the power of the constitutional courts to review the legislation for possible violation of any fundamental right. So one is the judicial review that lies with the Supreme Court, and this is as per the Constitution of India. And second one is that no amendment to the Constitution should have the effect of destroying any of its basic features. So the secondly is that they should not violate the basic features of the Constitution. So this basic feature doctrine was laid out in 1973 judgment, that is the case of Nanda Bharati judgment. So these are the constitutional provisions. And while the first one, that is regarding the judicial review, the limitation is set out in Article 13. So that is included in Article 13, under which the laws inconsistent with or in derogation of the fundamental rights, they are held void. So this is as per the constitutional provision and not merely out of anyone's own willingness. So Parliament, it is sovereign in its domain, and despite obviously it is sovereign in its domain, it has a complete freedom to come up with laws and do the constitutional amendments, but it is bound by the limitations which are imposed by the Constitution, because in India we have constitutional supremacy, and we do not have either parliamentary supremacy or the judicial supremacy. So it is the constitutional supremacy, and we need to ensure that no provision, no clause of the Constitution gets violated. So the main purpose of the basic structure doctrine is to ensure that some fundamental features of the Constitution, they are not legislated out of existence, and parliamentary majority is transient, but essential features of the Constitution, such as the rule of law, parliamentary form of government, separation of powers, the idea of equality, and free and fair elections, they ought to be perennially protected from the legislative access. So that is the thing. And we have, like, few days back we have discussed about what are deep fakes. So here we'll be discussing what are the issues that can arise or that have happened, instances that have happened because of deep fakes. So what are the issues and how we can deal with deep fakes in India? So the first issue is that deep fake videos, they can be used to spread misinformation and propaganda. So they can seriously compromise the public's ability to distinguish between fact and fiction. Second challenge is that there has been a history of using the deep fakes to depict someone in a compromising and embarrassing situation, and most often this is witnessed in the pornographic material of celebrities. Thirdly, they have been used for financial fraud. So recently, scammers, they use the artificial intelligence powered software to trick the CEO of a UK energy company over the phone into believing that he was speaking with the head of the German parent company, and he was tricked into transferring euro 2,20,000. So basically, with the misuse of this deep fake through the audio, which effectively mimicked the voice of the CEO boss, including his German accent. So that's how we can say that is the power of the deepfake, how it can be misused. And creating tensions in the neighborhood. So there are three areas where deep fakes, they end up being a lethal tool in the hands of India's non-friendly neighbors and non-state actors. So if the deep fakes, they end up with the non-friendly neighbors of India or the non-state actors, then obviously they pose a threat to India. So they can be used to influence elections. Secondly, they can also be used to carry out espionage activities, like doctored videos can be used to blackmail the government and defense officials into divulging these state secrets. And in March 2022, we saw that the Ukrainian president, he revealed that a video posted on social media in which he appeared to be instructing the Ukrainian soldiers to surrender to the Russian forces, it was actually a deep fake. So that's how we can say it can play a major role. And similarly, in India, deepfakes, they could be used to produce inflammatory material such as videos purporting to show the armed forces or the police committing crimes in areas with conflict. So they can be misused at massive scale, and it can definitely have very dangerous repercussions, we can say, which are obviously can disturb our security and safety. So deepfakes, they could enable the individuals to deny the authenticity of the genuine content also. So this is the other side, that despite being an authentic material, with people being aware about the deepfakes and how it can be misused, so it can enable the individuals to even recognize the authentic and the genuine content. So this is called the liar's dividend, and it refers to the idea that individuals, they can exploit the increasing awareness amongst the people and prevalence of deepfake technology to their own advantage by denying the authenticity of certain content. So that is there. And talking about some legislative provisions that are there in India to deal with deep fakes. However, we do not have one specific law which covers this issue, but there are very few provisions under the IPC and the Information Technology Act of 2000 which can be used to deal with such issues. And the Election Commission of India has also set rules that require the registered political parties and candidates to get pre-approval for all the political advertisements on electronic media. And these rules, they do not address the potential dangers which are posed by deepfake content. So there is often a lag between the new technologies and the enactment of laws to address the issues and the challenges they create. So we need to cover up this gap. And in India, the legal framework related to artificial intelligence is insufficient to adequately address the various issues that emanate from this new and emerging technology. So we need to come up with a comprehensive law dealing with the deep fakes. So Prime Minister, he flags off the world's longest river cruise. You can see in the picture, it is MV Ganga Vilas, and it will be covering a distance of 3,200 kilometers. And also it will be going via Bangladesh to Assam. So you should be knowing that it will travel through Bangladesh also. Then international institutions, they need fundamental reforms. So the developing countries are concerned about the increasing fragmentation of the international landscape, and these geopolitical tensions, they distract us from focusing on our development priorities. So that is one thing. And the institutions can be United Nations, the pending United Nations reforms, and also the Bretton Woods institutions. So Prime Minister, he also launched the Arogya Maitri, which will be like India will be providing the essential medical supplies to any developing country affected by natural disaster or any humanitarian crisis. So like since India was hosting the Global South Summit, so we have launched Arogya Maitri. Then there is the issue of marriage of minor girls. So here the main issue is whether the customary laws are primary to the laws that have been passed by our parliament to the statutory laws or not. So Supreme Court is going to check the legality of the personal law, and the panel, it questions the personal laws overriding the statutes like POXO Act and Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. So there is a conflict between the personal law and the statutory laws. So Supreme Court will be analyzing this thing. So it has decided to examine whether the girls as young as 15 years, whether they can enter into a wedlock on the basis of the custom or the personal law, when such marriages, they constitute an offense in the statutory law. So that is the main question. And recently, the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights has filed a petition after the Punjab and Haryana High Court, it upheld that a girl attaining puberty or the age of 15 years or above could be married on the basis of Muslim personal law, irrespective of the provisions of the POCSO Act. So this is the verdict of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, but the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights had filed a petition in the Supreme Court given this judgment. So High Court, it has ordered the basically Supreme Court says that the High Court order will not act as a judicial precedent for the other courts to give judgments on similar lines. So that is not going to happen. And the Kerala High Court, it had recently observed that the provisions of the POCSO would apply if the bride or the groom was a minor. So there are different views from different high courts. Now see, we'll be seeing that what is going to be the final take of the Supreme Court on this. Then you should be knowing about the PM Swanidhi, which is regarding the street vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi scheme, and center provides some financial assistance to the street vendors. Russia is claiming that it has captured the soldiers, so Ukraine denies that, and it is saying that we're still fighting in this town. And NATO is going to send aircraft to Romania to track the Russians. So it will be using AVAX. AVAX is the airborne warning and control system planes. So it will send the surveillance aircraft to Romania to bolster its eastern flank and monitor Russian military activities. So basically, kind of more surveillance activities are going to increase. And talking about India's trade deficit with China, so it has increased beyond $100 billion. So that is not a good thing when we keep saying that we need to reduce our dependence upon China and the goods that we are importing from China. But on the other hand, we are seeing that we are importing more and more from China, and our exports have declined. So the opposite is happening, like our exports have declined to China and our imports have increased. And the things should have happened the other way around. So we see that in 2022 our imports from neighbor, it has increased by 21%, but the exports to China, they have contracted to $17.5 billion. And China's total foreign trade for the year, and that is 2022, it has increased to a record high. But now we know that China is slowing down economically, and our imports, they have increased from $97.5 billion to $118.5 billion, whereas our exports to China have fallen from $28 billion to $17.5 billion. So our trade deficit, it has increased by 45% in just 1 year. And we need to definitely reduce our dependence upon China. So need to take more steps when we are promoting Atmanirbhar Bharat, when we are promoting Make in India. So that's how things should change. And now we'll take up the Financial Express. So in Financial Express, our PM, he tells India Inc. to think out of the box. So he says that we need to leverage the synergies with the public sector and think out of the box to seize the opportunities that are arising as a result of the emerging global environment and changing world order. So this is an opportunity also, and we need to be cautious of how things are changing. And he also made a pitch for the greater participation of women in the workforce. And thirdly, he said that there are early signs of new investment cycle in India, but the global headwinds, they are seen slowing the country's exports and the GDP growth. So on the one side, we can say on the one hand, we have new investment cycle starting. We see that our investment has increased because of the push by the government capital expenditure. But at the same time, we are also seeing that the global growth is slowing down, which is impacting our export performance. So a shift in the global supply chain due to slowdown in China, it holds both opportunities for us and a short-term challenge. So we need to leverage these opportunities. And so looking at the interest rates, so the RBI governor says that they may stay higher for a longer time period. And although we see that the momentum, it has moderated, but it still remains sticky. So it still needs to come down. Basically, inflation needs to come down more, and We have to be very vigilant, and the core part of the inflation, it has to be dealt with more concern and more. We need to be more vigilant about when we talk about the core inflation, because right now it is still at 6%, and we are seeing that the demand for wholesale credit is also picking up, so that is there. And when yesterday only we talked about that our gold imports, they have fallen, so we are again seeing that the sovereign gold bonds, they lose sheen. Basically they are not seeing as much as demand that we were witnessing during the pandemic time. And looking at the government's health expenditure, so as a percentage of GDP from financial year 2015, it was at 1.2%, and it has been around 1.4 to 1.3% only up till financial year 2020. But after that, it has increased to 1.8 and 2.1%. And we have a target of achieving and increasing it up till 2.5% of the GDP. So that is it from the Financial Express also. And thank you for joining in, Sarkari. You'll get the PDF link in the description box. So go and have a look at the PDF also. That is also very important part when it comes to the newspaper analysis. So that's it. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button and share this video as much as possible. Thank you again.